All right, we're taking a deep dive on the things that led up to the first Thanksgiving this week. I'm glad that you're here. Let's talk about it today on the Daily Download. Hey everybody, good morning. I hope that you're having a great Thanksgiving week. We're almost there to the big day, and we're going to continue our conversation today about William Bradford and those separatists who were a part of the first group that landed on Plymouth Rock all those years ago. If you'll remember from yesterday, William Bradford was the leader of a group of people who had established an English church in Amsterdam, and then later gone out farther into the Netherlands, where they could be free to express their religion in the way they believed that God had led them, follow the Bible wherever it would take them, and be free from sort of the oppression of the monarchy and the Anglican Church and the corruption that was a part of the church in the early 1600s. And things had gone pretty well for them, but they decided they didn't really like being in Amsterdam. They were all dirt poor. They were working 2 and 3 jobs apiece, and they longed for a place where they could be free to pursue the religion that God had put upon their heart, and also a place where they could make a living and a future for their families. And so, after much prayer and great discussion, they took a big step of faith and began making plans to go to the New World, believing that that would be a place where they could make a new start and they could follow God as He might lead them. So they didn't have the money to go on their own. So they ended up partnering with some investors from England, which were called strangers because they weren't a part of this original church, and they all together jump on board the Mayflower to make their journey to the New World. It's a rough trip. It's like over 100 people, and they're on a boat that's about the size of a basketball court. And the journey this is no Princess Cruise Lines that they're doing. The storms are serious. They don't have enough food. There's some illness that lays hold. It's rough. In fact, they get blown off course, and they don't end up in Virginia where they intended to be. Instead, they land, as you know by now, in Massachusetts, which isn't even really a thing yet. And so there's no charter that's in place. There's no official rules for how things are going to go. There's all kinds of questions about when we land, what are we going to do, and who's going to be in charge. And so they gather together on the boat, and they decide to sort of hammer out an agreement by which they will govern themselves. It's called the Mayflower Compact. Maybe you vaguely remember this from some high school history class. And it's one of the most important documents in all of Western culture because it is the first effort by a group of people to try to govern themselves. Now, here's a piece from the original compact. We solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic. In plain English, they agreed to stick together, to follow the rules they had established, to look out for the common good and for each other as best they were able. And of course, this would later be the foundation for the democratic principles that we work under still today. All of this coming out of this church that was seeking to follow the Bible. They believed in it so much they were willing to separate from the Church of England, move to the Netherlands, and then move again to the New World so that they could pursue God as the Lord had led them. Now, you know what happens next. Eventually, they do end up on land. They establish the colony. Things go really rough that first year. Over half of them die from disease or malnutrition. But then, of course, they end up in a place where the next year they'd have the opportunity and a heart that was full of thanksgiving that God had indeed brought them through and helped them to establish this new community. And really, little did they know at the time, begin to establish a new nation. Well, this is a lot of the story that's behind the first Thanksgiving. Maybe you didn't know any of it or some of it. I hope it's been an encouragement to you today that we're to pursue God and trust Him, and there's incredible things that happen when we do. In 2024, look at the nation we're a part of, all the blessing that we have known, and all goes back, at least a big part of it, to this little group of Christians on Plymouth Rock all those years ago. I love you guys. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll look forward to talking to you tomorrow.